Real estate is about freedom, choice freedom, time freedom, and money freedom, and the impact you can make with that freedom. But it doesn't come without cost. Your freedom takes work. That's why Neil Timmins brings together the tools you need to build your real estate legacy, from tips and tricks to interviews with industry titans. It's all here in one place. Real Grit. Let's get to it.
What if I told you you can make 20 times the return of a single family fix and flip on your next big deal? Well, it's actually possible. It's possible inside the world of commercial real estate. Say, I'm inviting you to this free challenge. It starts August 15th. It's totally free. It's a 5-day challenge where I'm going to take you and deep dive into the world of commercial real estate, more specifically, capital multiplier properties, what that is, how we identify them. I'm going to show you how to identify them, how to evaluate them, and how to lock them up risk-free. I'm going to give you all the paperwork to do it. It's totally free. You can sign up to join us at www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. That's www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. And I'll see you in the challenge. Hey, everybody, welcome to Real Grit. I got BJ Gremillion here with me. He's been in the industry for a dozen plus years at this point. He's built 4 businesses, at one point grossing over $25 million a year in revenue with 35 plus employees. And he's focused on building turnkey model in Tennessee. So I'm excited to have him here to talk to him. BJ, how are you?
Doing great.
It's good to have you here. Yeah, man. Thanks for being here. Hey, we all got started someplace. What was your first entry point into real estate?
Yeah, great question. So I actually started off, got married, moved to Arizona. My wife is from Arizona, and ended up moving into a subdivision and met a family that had just moved in as well. His name happened to be BJ as well. Okay. First time I've ever met another person with my same name or that went by my initials. And so we kind of hit it off, and I was originally working with Everett Jones and doing financial advising, and really just because I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. So that's just the first thing that just kind of fell in my lap. So I was doing that, knocking doors, cold calling, all that fun stuff, trying to build up that business, and honestly wasn't enjoying it at all. But then he was out in 2008. This was around 2008, by the way. So he, during that time, got into real estate, and, he was going to the auction every day, helping investors, get these crazy deals. And I followed him around a couple different times in his truck, and I'm just watching him work these deals and, doing the auctions and having a blast. And I just looked at, what his day looked like compared to mine. And I was like, you know what, I need to get into that because that looks way more enjoyable. So we ended up, partnering together after a couple of years, left my job with Everett Jones, and I started helping investors buy properties in the Phoenix area. Because at the time, this was the absolute best market, to buy real estate. Just, because everything was, you could buy a single family, and really the buy box for the investors was, hey, I want you to go out there, and you could do this in the MLS auction, however you want to do it, because they're everywhere, because there was so much inventory. But they just said, look, go out there, find homes that are between $30,000 and $40,000 that need roughly $10,000 to $15,000 in rehab, fix them up, and then we'll do a lease option on all of them. And so this investor that I worked with for a year, we bought probably 100 properties for him. And, that portfolio, he still actually holds on today. So, I mean, it's, he definitely can retire now very comfortably. But it was a great time to learn off of someone else's dollar and experience, that. And he let me kind of run the whole process. So I was able to see the process from start to finish, figure out how it worked. And then eventually, you get to the point where you can do it on your own. Yep,
exactly. So you worked through that, and then you decide to do it on your own. What did that look like, your entry point to doing so?
Yeah. So you know what? The very first flip I did, I remember calling my parents and saying, hey, look, like I've been doing this for about a year and a half now. I'm really confident in what I'm doing. I'm pretty sure I can figure out this flipping game. So I said, I have a condo, and, here's the numbers on it. And I think it's going to make sense. I bought it for $30,000. It was worth $70,000 if I fixed it up, put 10 into it. And then, everything went great up until the appraisal came in, and there was just no comps. And so everything was being pulled down at that time from all the foreclosures. So I ended up, appraisal came in basically $15,000 low. So I ended up making a grand total of $400 on that deal. And so, after that, it didn't get me down though. I was like, look, I know that this can work. So I just said, hey, give me one more shot. I bought the next house. It was a single family home. Yeah. And, that one made 15,000. And so once you do it, and you can see it all the way to completion, you're like, hey, let's just, let's keep it's addicting. Anyone in real estate will tell you the same thing.
You got the bug and you're in.
I did. Yep.
Yeah. And so continue to build in and focus on fix and flip there in the Phoenix market.
Yeah, we did. And really we just kept that going. And it was, we had a comfortable life. We were, flipping, I don't know, probably 10 to 12 homes a year, plus doing traditional real estate. We had a real estate brokerage. And then we started looking at land and we were like, you know what, there could be some opportunity to buy some of these infill lots and just see if we can get a contractor to, do it for a fee, build a home. Let's see if we can sell them. I run the numbers and it looks like that makes a ton of sense. So we ended up doing that. And, just like anything, you learn quite a bit just by doing it. And there's a lot of things that, if I had to do it all over again, I would have done it probably a lot differently, but experience is the best teacher for me. And that's just how I've always learned. I genuinely, I don't read books. I don't really do a whole lot of, studying. I just kind of like, I think that might work. And so it makes a lot of people like my wife pretty stressed out, honestly. Yeah. But I'm just, I guess, a visionary, through and through. Yeah. So anyways, we ended up doing that. And that was a rough experience, but still, again, it was similar to my first flip where we made like 20 grand. It took us like, I want to say, it was close to a year to get that completed, which it shouldn't have been anywhere near that. He, originally told us 5 months, 6 months. And so anyways, that was another one of those aha moments though, where I was like, hey, this will work. We just got to fine tune it. Everything's got to be figured out. And so, we doubled down on that. We ended up after we did that, we did it a couple more times. And then we were like, hey, we had an opportunity to do a small subdivision of 7 homes. We did another one that was 5 homes. We started doing minor land divisions.
Did you do the entitlement of the land or were you just doing the ground up?
No, fortunately, really, we just did the minor land division on the 5, because in Arizona, if you buy, acreage and it's in that scenario, it was 10 acres. You're allowed to split it up to 5 lots, right? Without having to go through a public report. If you go through a public report, it can just add basically, you factor in another year worth of time because you got to, go through the steps of meeting with the counties and the cities, and then you got to tough the neighborhood and all that stuff. So we didn't want to do that. We wanted to, just make it as simple as possible. So we're really known for building on acreage. Because again, that was something in Arizona. Out here, there's a ton of like HOAs, and everyone is looking for land where it's at least bigger than, let's say, 10,000 square foot lot, and they don't want an HOA. So we're like, okay, that's clearly a need. Everyone wants it. We know we can sell it. So let's just provide that product. And that's what we did. That's what we were known for, for the next 6-7 years. Really, everything that we built has been on acreage. And then we took everything that everyone really that as a realtor you hear over and over again. Like, man, these garages are so tiny, so we're like, all right, let's build a 4-car garage that'll fit 4 trucks in it, the biggest garages that you can build. Let's start there because we're guys and that's what we like. So
that's right.
We started there, and then there's just other things that we learned as realtors, like, hey, this would help, to, people like open floor plans and, they want an office, yada, yada. So we just, went through that. And honestly, the spec homes, that's one of the things that I enjoyed probably the most of everything I've done. I really did enjoy it. It's a longer process, but it was fun because at the end you do a big open house or a grand opening, and we would get hundreds of people, coming through and it was just a fun experience. So like that was our introduction to construction.
Fast forward me to from that point to the point where you're doing, nearly 25 million bucks in revenue. What did the world look like, and what did the business structure look like? What were you guys doing at that point?
Yeah. So really, 2019, we met with Gary Harper and his team.
Yeah.
He's a consultant for businesses in the real estate space mainly. And so a lot of people know him. Anyways, we met with
Gary's
him.
Great. Yep.
He's awesome.
Yep.
So one of the things that he noticed right away was, hey, look, you guys are all visionaries. You don't have a COO. That's clearly a need. So he actually wouldn't move forward until we got a COO. So we ended up hiring a COO like within a couple days. And then we ended up from that point scaling and taking everything we had been doing, but just double, triple down.
Yeah.
And so we ended up, taking our construction business. We went from doing, let's say 4 or 5 a year, to about, I think we had 24 homes that we were, under contract that we're still actually working through right now. But, we went under contract within 1 year. We went from 5 to 25 custom, homes in addition to, I think we had another 12 specs going on. So our construction department just absolutely exploded. Yeah. And it's one of those things where, it's a blessing and a curse. And, you learn that when you scale that big, that quick, it can actually just crumble really. Just because there's just so much going out the door.
Correct.
There's a lot coming in, but there's a lot going out. Yeah. And it's pretty hard, honestly, to kind of stay on top of everything. And so yeah, we ended up building that construction department quite a bit. Then we had our development business. We, in the past, had just subcontracted the development piece out, earth moving, earthworks.
Yep.
Decided to actually bring that in-house. And so my business partner, that we've been together up to that point of about 10 years, decided, hey, look, he loves tractors. He loves John Deere. He loves all that stuff. Yeah. And so that's right up his alley. Yeah. I'm like, I couldn't tell you what any of the equipment are even called. I don't even know what they do. It's just like, cool, whatever. So that was his jam. Yeah. And so really we had a construction, a development, and then, I was in charge of the fix and flips, wholesales. And really we were just focused in the Arizona market. Yeah. And so you add up those three, and then we ended up scaling, and we got really big, really fast. And then, it's funny because if you fast forward, which I'm sure we'll get into, then, there's, I can talk about, the other side of that.
Well, yeah. So bring me forward. I mean, it sounds like things are really good, real scale. Everything looks great on paper, but sometimes on paper doesn't quite line up with with reality. And I agree with your assessment that there's gross revenue sounds great. And it sounds great when there's huge numbers, but it's not net. And certainly there can be growing pains. And, we talked offline, so let's lead into it. Growing pains, sometimes it starts at the top with partners in terms of what that looks like. And there was some, friction and or a different vision for the direction, the trajectory of a company. And that had to come into a head at some point.
It did. Yeah. And it's funny. I think we all fall into the trap. So we're in a mastermind together. That's how we met, the Collective Genius. And so we're with a bunch of real estate investors. And I would say real estate investors are probably the most guilty of the shiny object, syndrome, but not just that. Also, you get in the trap of comparing, right? And it's funny because, you let people present and you'll think in the back of your head, like, oh my gosh, like they're doing so great. And look at that revenue. And everyone a lot of times is talking gross revenue, right? They're not actually talking net, what they bring home.
Right.
But man, like if you peel back all the layers and you look at that business and you actually go in and talk to people that actually know what's going on, it honestly 9 times out of 10 is a very different story than what it looks like on social media or in these presentations or in Collective Genius or any other mastermind for that matter. And so honestly, we're not any different. I try and be as real with everyone as I possibly can be, just to say, look, Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty cool things that have happened, but at the same time, man, there are some serious growing pains. And I think that when you scale, what I've learned, I think, is it magnifies those cracks that already existed, and it really does just show, hey, like if you don't fix these fairly quickly, these issues, they fester, and they end up it could end up crippling the business. And so, for example, we took a look at, the business, and this was 7-8 months ago, met with the accountant, and, you start diving into the numbers and you realize, holy mackerel, there's a lot of red, and there's a lot of expenses that are going out right now. And so after looking at really and we looked at all different phases, what's making money, what's not at the end of the day, because the other thing that you can run into when you have multiple businesses like we did, and they're all very different. So we have a development, construction, and investment real estate. So what can happen a lot of times when you're running those, they're running silos, but then at the same time, it's all under one roof. So sometimes one is doing really well and it's masking, the other ones that are not doing as well. Right. And that happened quite often, honestly, where one business will be carrying the others. And so you look at the overall bottom line number and you're like, hey, this is great. But then when you start diving into the details and you really look at the minutia of everything, you're like, okay, there's clearly, some major issues that, when you scale and you get to a point where you're just running like crazy, there could actually be some pretty serious underlying issues that are happening that you just weren't aware of. Whereas if it's just a solopreneur or, you're running a small business and it's very streamlined and focused, you're going to know every penny that's going in and out.
Right.
And so really, I just think it came down to just not knowing those numbers and not being very, I guess, judicious about, constantly looking at our expenses and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot that goes into this, by the way. I mean, I could talk for hours on, what we've learned from it. But at the end of the day, there was a lot that we realized, hey, there's a lot going on here. So we ended up deciding, it probably makes the most sense just for us to focus on what we're all good at. Right. And so Brad is my business partner, very good at, the development construction business. I don't know anything about it. I can't really help him. And so I don't really offer a ton of value, really. And so at that point, we realized, hey, look, I think it makes the most sense for you to just, run with your development business. Same thing with my end. Like I was doing the real estate side, investments, wholesaling. Yeah. And honestly, he didn't have an idea, of really what was going on in my business. And then the same thing with the construction side. We just realized, look, I think that, we had run in silos for long enough. And we just said, look, I think it makes the most sense for us all just to
what I hear
separately.
What I hear you saying, while it's important to have a partner who complements you, offsets you, often provides strengths to your weaknesses, and then vice versa, it does make, when you're not in the same business, if you will, because you're running so many businesses and you ran them in silos, literally different people being totally responsible for totally different things that don't necessarily complement or aren't in direct alignment with the kind of let's call it the core business, the overarching goal of the business, that it just came to a point where it's time to go a different direction and focus on individual strengths in your own silos, if you will.
Yes, it just did, and I just think that it's so important whenever you have a business partner, just look at it on an annual basis, maybe, and just say, hey, look, are we complementing each other? It's hard, for instance, to have two visionaries, right? Like if you have two visionaries, especially if they have different visions, it can get off track quick. And so, it was good for us to do that assessment and realize, what? I think that we're at a point now where we just don't complement each other in the best way. And so it was a tough conversation. It still kind of hurts. I mean, it still is not fun to think that after, 12 years that things are going to change. But I would say the only thing that has been constant in my real estate career has been change. So this is just a different, set of challenges and changes. And I think that we'll all be better for it, though.
Yeah. Knowing what you know now, maybe what are the 1, 2, 3 things you would have done differently in anywhere along the course of the last 12 years? as it relates to a partner specifically.
Yeah. Hopefully this helps people out. And this is actually something that I presented on at our last event here in Arizona. Is I, just wanted to let everyone know, like, hey, here's a few things that if I could do it all over again, this is what I would do differently. And I think number one, it starts with and I hear this a lot, and I've actually heard this from a handful of really high producers in our industry. That COO hire is vital. If you miss on that role, and if you hire the wrong person to be your COO to run your company, that could make or break you. Right. And making a decision, because I felt like, ultimately it was our fault. We shouldn't have, just said, hey, yeah, like I think this guy fits the mold. Let's go ahead and hire, which is what we did. It's such an important role that I would not hand the keys over to a COO until, and honestly, from what I've seen, the thing that works best for a COO role is whenever someone starts off, let's say, as an operations manager or executive assistant, let's say, and then they just work their way up in the business. Yes. You already know who you're getting. Yes. And you're not hiring from outside. They know the culture. They've been with you when it was, tiny and you were just getting by. And then when times got good, they were still there. So if I could recommend anything, number one, that COO role, if you're going to hire it, take your time and hire within if you can. I think the second thing that I've learned, that again, I'm doing it very differently right now than I was at the beginning of the year, is don't just hand over the keys to a Ferrari to a teenager, right? Like, don't just, this goes along with the COO comment, but a lot of times we make hires and we just think, oh yeah, I'll give them a little bit of training here and there, and then I'm going to set and forget. And I think there is this belief that investors have, or that real estate investors have, that, like Robert Kiyosaki, we all want to be in the owner's box. Yep. Okay. So everyone wants to get to a point where I don't have to show up to work. I can just vacation, 24/7. I never have to worry about the business. It's just going to run because I hired the right people. Yep. and all that. That's a load of crap. Like, that's an illusion. It's not going to happen. I fell into that trap. I thought, okay, I'm just one hire away. Like, once I hire this person, then, I won't have to, focus so much about being in the bit. And really what that does is you take your finger off the pulse and you let things go. And before you know it, that car's going down the wrong road. And, it can get ugly really quickly, especially if you're doing that while you're scaling. Yes. Good luck. You're just, it's gonna kill you. Yep. So anyways, that would definitely be another, I guess, thing that I would recommend against is that illusion. Talk to me about where you're headed now. What's next for you? Sure. So this goes to probably number 3. And again, if I could do everything over again, having learned what I've learned, but I say that, and really my whole life I've learned by making mistakes. Like, I fail forward. Right. And I think that I heard a quote that, success can be defined as, failing over and over again, but never losing enthusiasm. Yes, correct. Right, for it. And honestly, that I should put that on my wall, because that's me. Like, I fail nonstop, and I'm trying to fail as fast as I can, and just get there. But correct. But you know what I learned was I think it's called Sheehan's Wall. It's a principle that basically says that in business, you have to be known for one thing and one thing only. Like, what is your gold medal attribute? We had Jeff from Priceline, he's a billionaire. He came in and spoke to us, and he harps on this quite a bit. He just said, look, what I realized with Priceline, and he's like, I've also talked to Jeff Bezos and some of these other, very successful entrepreneurs. And I've asked them, what is your gold medal attribute? What is your one thing that sets you apart? And I thought it was interesting, with Priceline, it's name your price. That's their, the pitch that really kind of elevated them to a next level. When you talk to Amazon, Jeff Bezos, His gold medal when he was asked that question was deliverability, which I thought was interesting because, of course, he started with books, though.
Correct.
And he was like, look, I want to be the cheapest provider of books, and I want to be able to deliver, as quickly as possible, and take out these, brick and mortar stores, like Barnes and Noble and those kind of things. But he focused first on books exclusively.
Right.
And once he realized, like, hey, I'm pretty good at this and I'm better than anyone else at it, actually, then he could be like, all right, now that I know that I can dominate this, like, what's to keep me from doing, selling everything? But,
Right.
He got to the point where he's now the everything store. But his gold medal attribute is deliverability, which is why he's focusing on drones and, and all that, because he's just constantly trying to just get better and better and better at that. He wants to beat everybody at deliverability. And everyone knows that's why they're going to use Amazon. They'll pay more because it's convenient and they'll get it the next day or the same day.
Yep.
So I took that and I took that to heart, and I'm like, okay, what is my one thing? Well, we just went over kind of my path on, what I've been involved in, but I would tell you, I'm not the expert at any of those. I've done, construction and development and investment, real estate and wholesaling and, innovations. And I mean, you name it, like, I've dabbled in all of that and I've been fairly successful in those things. But I'm not the expert in any, like, no one would, if you asked them, hey, what does BJ do? What is he really good at? They would probably just be like, I don't know. He's just kind of all over the place. So what you have to do in business is you have to figure out what is your one thing and get extremely dialed in and good at that, break through that wall.
Yep.
And then once you break through that wall, then you're able to go wide. Then you can say, you know what, I'm going to dabble in this or that because I've already establish myself. I'm already there.
Yep.
And I think that the way that you know that you're there is everything becomes easy. Like everything becomes like you're not having to push and try so hard to get every single deal. Now it's a matter of trying to say no to all these opportunities.
Correct.
They're coming out of the woodworks, and that's how you've broken through the wall. So I, long story, trying to make it short here, because it's a great question. What I'm now focusing on is as I honestly spent the past 6 weeks, and I've been intentional about not just starting to work and focus on, I need to get more deals. I need more deals. I need to make, more money. And I actually spent some money to get some coaching and some consulting on what is it that I want to focus on and what do I want to get, what am I passionate about? What are my skill sets? And so when I looked at all of that, I realized, okay, I think, and this came from Collective Genius, actually. There was a presentation by Jimmy Vreeland, who's in our group, and he does turnkey rental properties. Right. And so I learned about his business. He kind of told me the ins and outs of what his day looks like. I also met with Mark Latour, who's also in that space, and realized, hey, you know what? That's a much more sustainable model for what I'm looking for, just because when the market goes up and down, like that's not going away. So that's where I'm focusing my efforts. I'm in Arizona, but I'm actually buying homes in Tennessee and Georgia. And I have a team that I'm building out there, working on getting a project manager. That's a big hire for me. But I have my sales rep out there, and, we have a brokerage and everything set up out there. So I've realized that everyone in Arizona, and this is all kind of worked out for the good, right? So everyone that I've worked with in Arizona, we have a property management company. They all hold these investment real estate properties that they bought 12 years ago, 10 years ago. Right. And they don't know what to do with them because they're like, hey, I can sell them and there's a lot of equity, a lot of cash, and I'll make a lot of money. Yep. But then they're like, where do I, put it?
That's right.
So I finally now have that solution for them. Yep. And everyone that I talk to, I say, look, you can sell that property and buy 3 over here, and they're going to cash flow,
so much better. Correct. Yeah.
So it's a natural fit for me. It makes sense. And that's where I'm focusing my efforts now.
Well, it's great. You've been leveraging off of all the experiences and the relationships that you've built over well over a decade of being there.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't just walk away from that. I just had to figure out, okay, how can I leverage what I have? Because in Arizona, for those that are not in the Arizona market, I know that you're in Iowa and there's, people all over the United States. I'm sure they're listening to your show, but if you turn on the news, if you look about the West, mainly especially, Arizona, Nevada, California, the market's dead. There's just and really it's the interest rates, tripling or doubling,
fast,
which happened everywhere, right? Yeah,
fast.
It just happened so fast, and affordability became a real issue pretty much immediately.
Yes.
So something has to give. Either the interest rates are going to go down, which I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Hopefully it does, but I don't see it happening for a while. Or you got to have prices.
That's right.
Down. And that's it. So,
and that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen real quick. It happens slowly over a period of time and painfully. Yeah.
Yes. So we're actually in the process. We bought 12 flip properties at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And then when the market turned, we're like, oh no, these are all properties that we probably would have made 50, 60K on average.
Yep.
And now on several of those, I'm just saying, hey, you know what? Like, I don't care how painful this is. Let's just slash prices, get rid of inventory as fast as you can.
If you do not, if you're one of those who holds, in my opinion, if you're one of those who holds out and thinks that all of a sudden things are going to change, it's not happening. Well, I mean,
it's not. It just keeps getting worse.
Interest rate, they've doubled practically. Of course, in over 6 month period. I mean, pretty short. Right. There's no projection. Interest rates, the only projection is they're going higher. They're not coming lower.
Yep.
And unless you're somehow going to hold on for a period of years by sticking a tenant in there for this thing to work itself out or to come back down to a different, I agree with you. I think it's going to be some time. All my small builder friends, being not the large machine guys, right? The small builder friends that I've got who built specs, customs are one thing, but build spec, I mean, they're just blow through the inventory as fast as you can.
Yep.
Get out because you don't want to be the last guy standing talking about the six figures you just lost on the property. Right.
Yeah. We're now treating buyers like we did sellers for so many years.
Correct.
Whatever you want.
It's nothing. You don't get don't cry over spilled milk. We've had a tremendous run, correct?
Yes.
And it just means on the flip, on the fix and flip properties, which we still do too, we have a different buy box now. The buy price is just differently. That's all. Right.
Yeah. 100%. Right. And like we're in Arizona. Hey, get rid of all the inventory as fast as you can. And it's so funny because, we're in that weird, anytime you have that transition, price is the last thing to drop, right? Because you got sellers holding on, thinking that it's worth 2021 pricing.
Correct.
And then now, investors and buyers are all acting like it's 2015, so they're all saying, oh, I'll buy that home that I would have bought, last month for 90% ARV. Now I want to be at 40% ARV. And you're like, look, it's a funny period of time, but I was just looking at, so Open Door and OfferPad are very big in Arizona. In fact, I think they probably hold the most inventory in Arizona. And it's not even close.
Yeah.
So they actually have over 10% of our active inventory is Open Door and OfferPad.
For sale. Oh my gosh.
OfferPad has, I've just was reading through all these statistics in the Crawford report, but OfferPad has, I believe, 11 months of inventory that they're sitting on right now. And they're not really dropping prices. And so what Open Door, though, to their credit, has done, and this is, a tip for anyone looking at Arizona, if you're looking to move to Arizona, look at Open Door listings right now. And chances are they're going to take just about any offer you give them. They are aggressively dropping prices by like 10, 15, 20%.
Wow.
Because I think that they see the writing on the wall and they're not messing around. They're just saying, look, we're going to lick our wounds, but we're not going to sit on this stuff for 2 years. We're going to get rid of it and just, not cry for spilled milk, to your point, and just say, look, let's get out of here. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out, but they just started slashing prices in the past 30 days.
A bad day doesn't make it a bad week. A bad week doesn't make it a bad month. A bad month doesn't make it a bad quarter. A bad quarter doesn't make it a bad year. Sometimes you just need to have a little purview, open you up, expand your vision a little bit and just go, I don't need every deal. I just need almost all the deals. Right.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it's okay. We just work through that.
Yes.
Tell me, I want to go back, kind of in the same vein of where I was headed with there. How are you able to keep such a positive attitude going through what you're going through? How do you keep mentally strong?
It's not easy. Honestly, there's days where I'm pretty dang frustrated. Just because, when you go from having such a good market, right? It wasn't just a good market. It was historically the greatest market of our lifetime, So, I mean,
you mean in the history of the country, not just our lifetime. You mean any American lifetime.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see it again. Just like 2008, I didn't realize how good of a buying market.
All of us who's still working didn't.
No, I mean, and it was just funny because we all know that the guys with the cash that were buying that, like I mentioned in the beginning, I mean, that guy's probably worth $50 million now.
Right.
But you know what? It was so hard. Speaking of Open Door and OfferPad, there's two different ways you can go about it, right? So Open Door is just saying, let's get out, let's just sell it and move on. Because what I've noticed, Alex Hormozy, I listen to his podcast quite a bit now because he's just one of the smartest guys I've ever come across. And he talks very fast, gets you a ton of information, and he does it in about 10, 12 minute clips in his podcast. So definitely recommend listening to him. But, one of the things that he said, that he met with a bunch of billionaires and very successful, people. And he said, the one thing that I realized with all of them, they think differently than the rest of us. They think in 10 years, they don't think in 6 months, to your point, 6 months, a quarter, 1 year. So does it stink that, Open Door is going to lose a grip of money? For sure. I'm sure they're not loving every single closing, seeing the red. And I think their average loss right now is something like $30,000, $40,000.
There was something like 40 some odd % of their homes sold in August were at a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's nasty. It's red.
Yeah.
But if they're going to get out of it, my money would be on Open Door versus OfferPad, because I think OfferPad is like, no, let's try and hold on to every last dollar that we can. And it's just that's short-term thinking. I just don't see, long-term it playing out well for them. And so I think that the important thing to do is don't just look at the here and now. As long as you're able to focus on, hey, let's not look through the rear view. Let's look through the windshield. Yep. What do I see opportunity-wise over the next, couple of years, 3 years? Yeah. And then capitalize on that. And as long as you continually look at and you spend your energy on that, as opposed to looking in the rearview mirror, then I don't know. Those are the people I feel like are successful.
In order to thrive, you must survive.
Yes. That's important.
And it'll be interesting to see how the two big boys play out. Will they both survive? Right. Yeah. Let's do this. I want to move on.
Will.
No,
we'll see.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes. It seems like we're going to be, we're going to be in
it's fun to be a spectator.
Exactly. Yeah, that's fair. I want to move on to the final segment, what I call 4-4 impact. Your favorite quote: life doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. You don't have to like it. It's just easier if you do. What about that? Well, I can imagine what about that resonates with you. It seems like that is something to remind yourself of on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Honestly, I say it to myself probably 5 times a day at least. Like I just keep thinking, look, because right now we're getting kicked in the teeth over and over again, like just trying to sell. Everything is hard right now. Everything right now is just a struggle. It's difficult. But you know what? I look at it, I'm like, look, this is definitely going to be for my benefit down the road. And what's really funny, honestly, is this year's been pretty wild and crazy. But at the end of the day, if things play out with the land acquisitions that we have in place and stuff, I'll have by far my best year ever will be this year and next year, just because we had some land investments that we acquired several years ago that are now, finishing up and closing out. Yeah. And so it's funny, like this has been the year of the most trials and crazy stuff going on. But if I look at everything with the glass half full mentality, I'm like, man, you know what though? Like life's good. There's a lot of good going on. So you just can't get, too caught up in all the struggles and all the problems that are surrounding you, and look at those as opportunities.
Yeah. What do you think holds most investors back from hitting their personal next level?
I think, especially this was applicable last year, complacency definitely is something that I've struggled with. And I think a lot of investors do, a lot of investors, they get to a point where they're comfortable and they're doing really well.
Yep.
And so they're like, well, what next? Like, how do I challenge myself? Like, where do I need to go to next? And so I think that's definitely been a challenge, for me. But yeah, that's one thing. You just have to figure out what are you passionate about. And it usually you'll get to a point where it's no longer about the money. And then it becomes way more about the impact.
Yeah. Your purpose.
And helping other people. Yeah. Like what you're doing with your show and the way that you're giving back. I mean, that gives you so much more purpose and energy. Yeah. And then what's cool about that, though, is you just can't help it. Right. But by you doing that and giving back to the community, you're getting back tenfold. Sure. Right. Yeah. And it's just funny because like you start trying less to make money, but then like for whatever reason, it just finds you become a magnet. And then you're like, man, this is weird. Like, how does that happen? But it does. I see it all the time.
Yeah. Outside of real estate, what are you most passionate about?
I think just that actually. I want to get to a point where I'm making way more of an impact. I'm helping way more people. And it's not so much about me worried about paying the bills and because I don't know if you're this way, it's just the way I am, I guess. But, and I'm sure there's others that feel the same way. But after you've done it enough times and you've had that adrenaline rush with the deals and you make the money and those kind of things, that only goes so far. But the lasting stuff, the things that make lifetime, I guess, legacy, starts to come into play. That's where I'm working on, focusing.
Yeah. Well, my last question then is, what's your favorite way to make an impact?
That's a good question. What I have found, and this goes back to what I, probably just touched on, has been that whenever I just stop and I look to see how I can help someone that might be struggling, with whatever it might be, without any expectation for, compensation or anything like that, I've seriously found that every time I've done that, there's always been this karma effect where just things end up, blessing their lives and then, my life as well. And if I could find a way, honestly, to just get the business to a place where it's operating at a very high level again. And so it allows me to have more time just to serve and, do those things. I also want to go and, I know Collective Genius is really good about this, but, they go and spend some of their time in these third world countries, helping, build homes, humanitarian aid, those things. Those are all things I'm really passionate about. Yeah. And so, I work a lot within my church as well. I really enjoy working with the youth and, it's fun. I actually have done a lot of real estate seminars with them and getting them excited for it. And, things that I wish that I had when I was their age. Like I didn't know anything about real estate. And so I'm trying to expose them, not just real estate, but a business. Yep. That's definitely what excites me.
No, that's great. BJ, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here. You've got you've been on an amazing journey and it's not over. It's got just a different direction, different trajectory for you. And I'm excited to stay connected so that we can come back in a year or so and get an update on where the business is and where you're headed. So I appreciate you taking the time to get, for those who want to connect, they want to find you, they want to follow you, where can they go? What should they do?
Yeah, I'm on all the social media. And so Facebook, Instagram, just my name, BJ Gremillion. And then I'm also, we're working on building up our Property Spot brand. So that's the new name of the business. That's the turnkey business, Property Spot and Property Rush. So they can find me there. We'll get the links down below for everybody. BJ, thanks for connecting up, man. Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Neil. Likewise. Hey, for everybody here at Real Grit, I'm Neil Timmins, reminding you that real estate requires real grit. See you next time. What if I told you can make 20 times the return of a single family fix and flip on your next big deal? Well, it's actually possible. It's possible inside the world of commercial real estate. Say, I'm inviting you to this free challenge. It starts August 15th. It's totally free. It's a 5-day challenge where I'm going to take you and deep dive into the world of commercial real estate, more specifically, capital multiplier properties, what that is, how we identify them. I'm going to show you how to identify them, how to evaluate them, and how to lock them up risk-free. I'm going to give you all the paperwork to do it. It's totally free. You can sign up to join us at www.untitled
20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. That's www.20xprofitchallenge.com/real grit. And I'll see you in the challenge. If you like our content and want more, you can access it at realgritpodcast.com. You hear it guest after guest. Instinctively, you already know it. But let me call it out. The most expensive action is inaction. The real estate market is full of opportunities. You just need to uncover them. You can build a business that lasts for years, makes monumental impact in the lives of those that you love. It's not just about business, but about the freedom you get because of it. Have you ever heard the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone? If you want to go far, go together. I believe that partnering is essential. In fact, I partner with hardworking investors all the time. The point is that you can get a lot further with the right partner. Let me say it again, the right partner. If you've ever thought about partnering with anyone, or if you have a partner now, I encourage you to download my free Partner and Profit Guide, which includes the top 5 must-answer questions to evaluate a profitable partnership. You can find it at www.legacyimpactpartners.com. I'll see you in the next episode.